Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Getting to the Top, where I interview inspirational leaders who talk us through their leadership journey so that we can discover our ability to change the world that we're living in through leadership, looking at leadership through different lenses and different perspectives, and understanding the power that we have as people and as diverse people on a leadership journey. So today I'm really delighted to be interviewing my friend, childhood friend, and a woman that inspires me in so many of the things that she does, Genevieve Pantin. She is the author of A Lioness Heart, among a number of other things. And when I read that book, it was really phenomenal for me because you read about so many women with extraordinary strength coming from incredibly oppressive situations and taking a decision to move in a completely new direction. And I thought that this was a really great time in our podcast to talk through how do you, if you are not seeing yourself as a potential leader, or if you want to lead, but you're not seeing that path, how do you find that path to purpose? So I thought Genevieve would be the perfect person to take us through that journey and to talk us through some of what she's seen and some of what she's done. So I'll start by asking Genevieve to introduce herself, and then we'll get into the details of it.
Well, thank you very much, Racquel, for that absolutely amazing introduction. I don't know if I can get any better than that. That was very kind of you. Such wonderful things you've just said about me. So I am Genevieve, and my background is as a psychologist and an anthropologist. And I work as a psychotherapist actually more now. And I'm a director of a global oil service company, energy service company called Fernley International. I'm on the board of Fernley International. I am also on the board of the Women's International Chamber of Commerce for India. And I'm an ambassador for a couple of other charities, a really wonderful women's charity called HERA, and another charity that is focused on, that provides philanthropic support for many, many other well-deserving charities around the world called the Global Gift Foundation. And I'm very, very pleased to be here today with my beautiful friend, Racquel, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely wonderful. So I think the first thing that I want to understand, because I really love the book, is what inspired you to write A Lioness Heart?
I got to this phase of my life, Racquel, where I just felt I wanted more. And I felt actually quite self-centered that I wanted more. So first I had to digest that I want more. Think of being grateful for all that I had, but accepting that it's okay to want more. It's okay to want something else. And at this point, I actually had, as a therapist, quite a number of women I had in my therapy room who were around my age, but also expressing the same. That they felt that they had so much, that they had a good life, they had a husband, they had children, they had either a job or they had a comfortable life, but why should they want more? And I felt at this point it was something that was missing. And one thing that was missing, I felt for my life, was really focusing on, for one, accepting that change that was happening. And for two, finding real inspiration. And I believe at that moment, something happened and I felt quite open to inspiration. And I really did the homework on it at nights, meditating, having long runs, doing the homework in my head, spending that special time talking to myself and having a dialogue in my head about what's missing. And my path started to open and I started to encounter these incredible people. And my first step was I started an online platform called Vive Living. And I used this as a space to inspire other women. And I have some incredible women as guests on this platform, one of whom is my very good friend, Racquel. And I thought I'm going to gather these women around and I'm going to say, you know what, let's hear what inspires you. And let's inspire other women in this space to reach for that thing or that purpose or that path that they never thought they'd be able to. And that's where it started. And then I had a beautiful chance encounter when I was interviewing for the Global Gift. And I fortunately met Deepak Chopra, who is just such an inspirational human being. And he had some wonderful advice for me. And he said, be curious, find your gift and give it away. And at that moment, I kept thinking, what's my gift? What's my gift? And I meditated on it, and I ran on it, and I walked on it, and I thought about it. And I thought, you know what? I'm an observer. I have a beautiful place in the world where I sit in a therapy room and I observe. And as an anthropologist, I'm really the greatest scientific skill as an anthropologist is really as an observer, as participant observation. And I felt, you know what? I've had this beautiful opportunity to observe how people's lives have changed and shifted and moved. And this is my gift right now, to be able to share the incredible mountains some of these women and children and people I've met have climbed, to inspire maybe others to climb their own mountains. So that's kind of how the seed of the book started. And it took about a year, well, less than a year to write, a good rewrite during COVID. And here we are. I've taken a little snapshot of myself in space and time, and I've shared that.
You know, I think it's so beautiful because one of the things when I launched this podcast, a lot of women asked me, they were like, oh, so who's going to interview you? And what I haven't said is I've already been interviewed, and it was a fabulous interview for Vive Living. And I'll actually publish it on my Instagram page again so that people can see my responses. And I think it was one of the things that inspired me to have this kind of conversation, because a lot of people, especially as you're talking about finding your purpose and being in a really great space, but knowing that there's something missing, you want more, and you know that there's more that you have to give, and being able to tap into that and then saying, you know what, I'm going to go for the next thing because I know that there is more purpose in my life, and being willing to open up and realize that and sit with it and talk with it and run with it. And discover what is your purpose. And for so many non-traditional leaders or non-traditional people in a leadership space, I think it's really important that you understand the need for diversity in those spaces, because it leads to better outcomes. And so I'm so delighted that that we had this interview. So tell me about some of the lessons that you learned on the way in writing this book and in interviewing the phenomenal women that you featured in the book. What are some of the things that you've learned?
Well, the most important message I learned is that we are more homogeneous as women than we probably give ourselves credit for. We're actually more homogeneous, let me even stretch it, as humans than we give credit for. You know, we're all going through these different phases and space, and in the same sort of space and time on the universe. So it's tapping into that homogeneity of where, again, like I said, you know, we're all going through changes. How we respond to those changes depends on the choices we make. Mm-hmm. And writing this book, for me, getting the book in my hand was the second part of the service. But the first part of the service was really the journey of really doing the homework on the inside to be able to clarify my voice. Mm. You know, I actually have a chapter that's called Find Your Voice, and working through the tools that I share actually in my therapy room and penning them together and it's quite a vulnerable account as well, because I share some of my own experiences, and penning these messages and these tools, which is what the book really is about, on how to guide you to finding that path of purpose, and realizing how much I've learned from the others around me, how much I've learned from the people who've come to me for therapy or who've come to me for support, how much they've supported me growth on that journey of life. And it reminded me one thing that I had been told very, very many years ago when I was a student in Australia. It is life should not be about the destination. It is always about the journey.
Nice.
And I think that is the most important lesson I learned along the journey of the book. It was about the journey. It was about the person that I was before I wrote this book. and the journey I had writing it, be able to capture it in space and time in something that is fundamentally never going to change. That book is always going to be there. I'll have to write another book for it to change. But yeah, so, and out of that as well, Racquel, I'd like to encourage every single woman to be the author of their stories. And if it's not about you writing it into a book and you're publishing it, it's every time that you've got that new phase and that new phase of your life. It's my chapter, it's my story, it's my life. You know what? So I'm never going to say I didn't have a choice. I'm never going to say I don't know what to do. I'm going to say, you know what? I have choices, and I'm going to use those choices I have to empower the next phase of my life.
So true. And even when you feel as though you don't have a choice, that how you deal with it is a choice. How you if you're put into a situation and it's not where you want to be and you want to be somewhere different, how you deal with this is where I am now and this is where I want to be next, and this is how I will feel about it, this is how I will interact with the situation that I'm in. That absolutely is a choice, and you control the narrative. You tell your story as you're saying, as you move forward. So I think that is really powerful.
And I also always share, so I call the sort of therapy that I do, I actually call it choice therapy. And so I specialize in trauma, but I also call what I do sitting in a room, always comes back to, you may not have a choice about everything, but you always have a choice about something. And when you use that choice, you use your power and you find your power. So we always have to think of every situation, what have I got a choice about and how am I going to use that choice?
I think my favorite story in the book is about the young woman who had the children, and she, was in the abusive marriage, and she had to decide to leave. And she decided, you know what, I'm amazing at baking these treats, and I'm going to find my way out. And the incredible strength that it took for her to decide, listen, I'm going to forge a different path. I'm going to find my way out of this situation. And the intestinal fortitude it took, the grace it took to just take that decision in those circumstances and change her entire life.
Yeah, and how she felt, this woman, she got the tools, she used her resources, she found that strength. That story really shows us the strength of the human spirit and the love of a mother.
Yes.
And the love and the strength of a mother as well. Because when you've got others to live for, it's amazing how you find a way. You find a way to find those choices. She's an incredible human being, that woman. And we consulted on the story together. So I was very, very grateful to her for allowing me to share her story.
And the thing is, I mean, even for women who are not mothers, because I advocate for, I think there's in Eat, Pray, Love, they talk about having a child is like getting a tattoo on your face. You want to be sure. You want to be sure you know what you're doing. And so to trust your instinct as a woman, whether you want to become a mother or you decide it's not for you, but to have that ownership of, we all belong to each other, and understanding that we have an obligation because of all of the blessings that we've received. We have an obligation to leave the world in a better place than we found it. And so on a leadership journey, for example, if you're scared, it's okay to be scared. We're all scared at some point, but bravery isn't not being scared. Bravery is doing it anyway and realizing that there's a bigger obligation, there's a bigger purpose, there is a need to see things done differently. And you can sit back and say, oh, all of these things aren't right. But, always be willing to ask yourself the question, what part can I play in making this a better place? And being willing to just lean into that and accept that requirement of you to make the world a better place.
And I think on the subject of leadership, Racquel, I really feel that true leadership comes from service.
Yes.
So when you find your gift and you know how to use your gift to serve others, you are leading.
Yeah.
You are leading by purpose. You're leading with purpose. You're leading by example. So for any woman who's struggling along their leadership journey, don't ever think you're too high or you've reached too far to serve others, because then your leadership journey is over.
Yeah.
It's think, as a leader, how do I use my skills, my gifts, my resources to serve others? And you will find they will be following. You will have your people, you will have your tribe to follow you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think of all of the times, and there have been many, that I've fallen flat on my face, it is because I have forgotten that, you know, it isn't about leading for leadership's sake. It is about leading in service of a greater purpose.
Yeah, of a greater
and
purpose.
the minute you forget that, things begin to unravel. So
yeah, and I think also
I wish you would have told me that 20 years ago. That would have been easier if you just told me and I didn't have to live it so many times.
Yeah. And I also believe that we, in living in that service for others, you know, we have our purpose. You know, we find our purpose in that service, and it creates authenticity as well. So when we're very sure on what we're doing and why we're doing it, and that purpose, and we can then create a proposal that is authentic and attractive to others, and people come along.
Yeah,
they come along. If the proposal really comes and it's purposeful and it's meaningful and you have meaning in it, you'd be ready to lead. You'd have your people.
So tell me, this question of purpose, I think, is so important. So tell me about, you know, when someone is trying to identify their purpose, what are some of the things that they need to do in that process? I mean, you talk a lot about purpose in the book, and I think it's really good because it gives you such a, you know, I felt in reading the book about, you know, finding my North Star and being able to follow it, and understanding when something doesn't align with the direction that you have decided for your life, and understanding that there will be ebbs and flows, and you will move. There will be things that may seem to take you off your path at times, but ultimately, as long as in your mind it's the same purpose, you are moving in the right direction. So tell me a little bit more about, you know, how do people go about that process of identifying their purpose and knowing that that is in fact the one?
When I think of purpose, this is my thought, so this is quite individual and subjective. I think of a light. I think of and you just used it in a very similar expression that you use as in your North Star. So I think of purpose as always being a light. And when I think of a light, I think of the words of Rumi. The wound is where the light enters. And this is, for me, usually where purpose is born. You know, we are human. None of us have escaped hardship or difficulties in our lives. We may run away from it, we may sidestep it, but somewhere there in that pain, in that thing that hurt, there is an entry into our souls to find that purpose. And we may have a purpose, we may have something that burns, but then the next question is, how do you turn that into a way to see your path? And there are a couple of things that I think of. First of all, you ask yourself, well, first of all, you go back to meditation. You go back to the bare basics when you're focusing on your breath. Because if you allow your breath to guide you, you will always find your path. So that breath in the morning and breathing and really feeling it going through you and feeling nourished by your breath. Another tool that is really, really important is the one that joins the breath with movement. So whether that is coming as exercise, as walking, running, preferably for me, it's yoga. So, and always remember, you don't pick the fruit the day you plant the seed. So this is a process.
Yeah.
So we think of the breath, the grounding. You think of a holistic way to get yourself ready for your journey. You know, we're all soldiers in life in some way or the other, if we are going to be serving. And then I also have a very strong belief that we all have a place or a space where our best thoughts and ideas come to us. And if we can identify that, that's another quite valid tool to have in your toolkit. So for some of us, it might be on the walk in the morning. It might be on a long drive. It might be in the shower. So think back of the last time a big a big moment came to you. And think of where you were. And not that you have to recreate it in an instantaneous way, but go back to doing it regularly.
Yeah.
And on the holistic path again, always stay hydrated. So if you think of the things that we need, and my website actually, it follows the themes: feel good, look good, do good, and be inspired. And when you think of the things that you need in your life, we kind of need clothes and shelter because it helps us to feel safe. So we always have to get back to a space in life where we feel safe. And if safety is not the first possibility, in that lack of safety, there needs to be somewhere we do find safety to think, because all human beings need safety. And then we think about food and our relationship with food. And I don't think anybody, like any relationship in life, nobody has a perfect food relationship. It's never perfect. And it's one that we need to be mindful about. We need to work on. It needs to be something that we're treating like our best friend or our lover or our partner. It needs to be something that we're having a dialogue with to ourselves every day, because the way we nourish our body starts to reflect in the choices we make as well.
Yeah.
So, and I think then about breathing, as I said, hydrating, being sure we drink a lot of water, that we get our electrolytes going. You know, if we live in the Caribbean, coconuts are on every corner. You know, get some coconut water in you. And then we think again about our minds and joining the breath with meditation and clearing our minds and getting that space. And these are the tools that we can all use. And gather your resources. Think about it. You know, sometimes you think, oh, I can't ask that person that. And you think, why can't you?
Right.
What are you scared of?
Right.
You know, dig into the head. Why don't you want to ask that person? If this person is a resource, why don't you want to ask it? Is it a real pride? And what's the worst you're going to hear? No?
Yeah.
At least you've heard something. You've used your voice.
Yeah.
So a lot of these tools I share in the book, and it's a good way to, it's kind of like setting a roadmap for your life and looking at life holistically. And so these are some of the tools that I'm every day trying consciously to put into practice for my next phase of my life as well.
You know, it's so interesting that you talk about that, because I think a lot of times, one of the things that helped me connect with you and you know, in this sort of second phase of our connection, and certainly helped me to connect with the book, because there are like recipes in the book, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. But it, you know, we treat breath, or we take breath for granted, understanding that that is the thing that keeps us alive. And so how we use our breath it's more than just something to take for granted. It is such an important part. And there's so much research about the power of the breath and the power of meditation and the power of using that mindfulness to help to center you and to discover, just to listen to your thoughts. It isn't about some, you know, transcendental perspective that you can get to, although you can get there, but just simply just sitting down and listening to your thoughts and making sure that you are choosing your thoughts like you're choosing your clothes. And how do you nourish yourself? We think about all of these other things. We wait till we get sick to take medication versus thinking about there are things that we are putting into our bodies every day. How mindful are we about what are the things that we're putting into our body that is it's making up our cells. It's supporting all of the processes and how important that is as a part of us becoming who we are. I think that's so important as well. And again, one of the things that came out for me in the book, exercise. You know, I've always been a huge advocate of exercise, and I can tell if I'm missing exercise. I get grumpy, and my family will tell, when was the last time you had a little exercise? When was the last time you went for a run? You know, because it makes a difference in how you feel and how you're able to serve others. You can't serve others if you're not taking good care of yourself.
Exactly.
So
that's the key, Racquel.
Yeah, we take for granted that are so important in our own development, in taking care of yourself and honoring the life that you have. So I think, again, just being willing to be a whole person. And I loved that about Vive Living. It is about being your whole self and being your best self in every way possible, and not cutting corners in any area. Just being willing to say, you know what? All of the things that I do and all of the things that I am support me being a whole person and coming to the table as a whole person. So I love that. I love that. And finding the space where you find inspiration and just being mindful enough to figure out where that is. So absolutely. So you talked about what's next for you on your journey, and I'm really excited to hear. What do you think is next for you on your journey?
Well, in the nearest future, I am going to be doing an audiobook.
Nice.
So I'll be working on the audiobook quite soon, potentially by next month. The audiobook would be hopefully done and put together and out after that. And I've started penning the next one.
Nice.
So I don't want to give too much away about what that one is about, but I'm looking more at personality types and in a sort of an anthropological, cultural setting. So, but we'll see. It's and I'm actually, and so it's coming together. It's coming together.
So what's the space that inspires you then?
Apart from having and being surrounded by incredible women like you, Racquel, and being sure that people like you we stay in each other's domain, that we stay in touch. You know, I think of you as a resource for me. You know, there are many a times that I'm about to do something where I'm scared and nervous and I'm not sure how to make that step, and I'd call you because you inspire me hugely. And surrounding myself, knowing that I can pick the phone up and I can call the women that inspire me and say, you know what, and asking for help, asking for support. A lot of us think we don't have that choice.
Yeah.
You know, and we lose a resource for that. And back to the breath again, my breath really inspires me.
Yeah.
You know, and the way I put it, and I can't really drive this home enough, we can actually go naked and be okay and survive for a long period of time. And you can survive without food for 21 days. You can survive without water for 7 days, but you can't survive without your breath for more than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Surely in that order, it tells us what's the most important.
Yeah.
So when I actually really need inspiration, my tools are, I go back to the breath, I work on my food relationship, I exercise, and I reach for my resources. And I think of my tribe as well. And I think of my tribe of people. And I think of who's in my tribe and what are my resources. And sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a thing. Sometimes my resource might be time. Yeah. You know what? I have 3 hours that I've been watching TV the last 2 months. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to use that time and take it back as a resource.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of how I create an inspirational space for myself.
Oh, I think that's so brilliant. And I love what you were talking about with the tribe. I'm honored when you call me, by the way. When you call me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I also love it when, you know, and that's the thing. It's about sort of, you know, I read I'm trying to remember the book about digging your well before you need water. And it's so important that you serve as a resource for others while also tapping into your resources so that you create this relationship, because it is both a gift to give as well as to receive support. And so I love that knowing that when you call me, I know that I can call you and say, boy, I'm really struggling with this. I would love to have you as my guest. Would you do it? Because I loved your book. And so, it's so great. And when I reach out to women to ask them to sit for this podcast, I know I'm asking them a favor. And I say, is there anything that I can do for you? Because it's important that we serve as resources for each other and support each other and help each other on this journey, because nobody's done. Nobody has everything. I've been fortunate enough to be in some incredible spaces, and everyone is working on something. Nobody is sitting back and feeling like they're done. And so understanding what are people working on, and how can I help you in whatever the simplest of ways.
And that's the other one as well, Racquel. Pivot.
Yeah.
It's never over. So you build a platform and you think of how to build a foundation for another one.
Yes.
And I hope I'm doing this until my last day. And that's when I heard Deepak Chopra's words about how do you energize your spirit?
Yeah.
Be curious. Find your gift, give it away, serve others, use your gift to serve others. So when you pivot, you're going to find another way to serve others. And and that's another little great tool that I learned along the way as well.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Genevieve. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, this isn't the last, this is the beginning.
I hope so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And once again, please subscribe.
My real pleasure.
Thank you. Please subscribe to the podcast. We want to inspire you on your leadership journey. We want to teach you some new tools. I want to make sure that everyone is working toward their purpose and building their tribe and living a complete, holistic, full life, and serving this world to create a better place. So thank you very, very much. Thank you so much, Genevieve.
Thank you.
Even better than I had hoped. So I'm so grateful.
For having me. I'm extremely grateful. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.